Air Glue Media Podcast.
Part of the Earglue Media family of podcast.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast. Your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Three Quarters to Play. The Cantina Cast. This is episode 325. Cobb Vanth, the Mandalorian. My name is Aura Padilla, and joining with me tonight is none other than executive producer of this show and many others.
Yeah, you can tell after that little flub there.
And the great audio caster that he is, Mike Rondo. Mike, welcome to the show. Thank you for that little brief moment of levity there.
Well, you know what? I didn't realize I hit the way I got set it up on the board is like 3 quarters is number 1.
Yeah.
I put the Cantina Cast at the bottom because it's closer so I can hit it. Apparently, I thought I was doing 3 quarters to play because I get the new Pac-Man machine over here. So I'm, my mind's everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right. It was a good laugh. I thought, oh my gosh, what is happening here?
You should have seen you did see my face in the the thing. I was like, oh, you son of a. Anyway.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to the show, Mike. Welcome. All right, so we're doing this live on YouTube. We're also recording this, so this will get released as a full episode later this week if you're a Patreon member, and then next week as part of the general release. You guys will see that Tuesday afternoon. So this is probably a long-awaited show, and I'll let you speak to this because I know this has been burning for you. I mean, this is something that we've not really brought up, and we talked about Cobb Vanth in the past. It's been a very light conversation just because we really didn't have a whole lot.
It's not much,
on, right?
There's only a few things of it, really. Yeah, like paragraphs. But.
And this week we got some news that we felt was like worthy of a show. We could probably put something together here, so we're going to talk about that. But Mike, how long has it been since we heard about Cobb Vanth?
Well, we were trying to do the math earlier. I think it was 6 years or so.
Been like that, yeah.
Aftermath came out, and and it's funny because you were asking me, what do you remember about it? And I remember the only thing I couldn't really remember was the name, but now it sinks in now because, with all the rumors and everything going on.
Yeah.
But before that, I just remember the guy that took Boba Fett's armor, and and my biggest gripe of the whole thing is we've waited so long and we've got no payoff, which is half the problem with all those interludes or whatever you want to call them in the books, right? We get all these things like the acolytes, but nothing ever pays off. So this is one of those things. Like you've been waiting around, you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem is people will forget about it and they're like, "Who the heck is Cobb Vanth?" And then you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's my biggest problem." But what about you? I mean, what do you remember?
I kind of feel the same way because when that so when those books came out. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of grief around, they weren't well written and people didn't understand the first book, what they were trying to do with the book. And it almost felt like for me, I actually enjoyed them. I'm not going to say they were my favorite, and they definitely did get better. You ask the general populace that have read those books. They're all probably in agreement here that as the books got on and when we finally got to Empire's End, that book was really pretty decent, right? My problem is that it felt like he was trying to, and this is Chuck Wendig, was trying to lay down the ground roots or the grassroots for a lot of different stuff to kind of expand upon later on. He gave you a lot of world building and really kind of painted a very broad stroke of what the galaxy looked like after the fall of the Empire. And to your point, they didn't really capitalize on it. I mean, we got bits and pieces here and there, and you can make assumptions that, that must be this, that kind of thing. But we never really got hardcore evidence that this is exactly what was going on, right? And so for something like this, and this is probably one of the standout stories, right? This Cobb Vanth story, which is really only 3 interludes, 1 in each of the 3 novels. So you had to wait for all of it to get the full story. Yeah. But this is probably one of the better stories overall that was told in that. And I know we're kind of skirting around the actual news, but the news being that Cobb Vanth is reportedly, allegedly rumored to be in the Mandalorian, and we're going to speculate on a lot of things here about how did he even get there, what's his motive, that kind of thing. But I thought before we do that, I thought maybe we could start the show off because we're not going to do any news, by the way. But before we start, let's talk a little bit about Chapter 5 of The Mandalorian because that was the gunslinger episode.
That was the big. I remember when it happened. We had a big thing in Discord. You and I went back and forth a few times because I think you were mentioning Cobb. I think you were the first one to really say that. Me, of course, I just jumped on the Boba Fett bandwagon,
Yeah.
and I haven't gotten off that train. And Joe in Discord likes to pick on me for it as well. So, but continue, sir.
No, well, and so just to kind of recap, right? At the very end of that episode, we get this character. All we see are Boots walking up to. Oh my goodness, what's her name?
Phoenix? Is it Phoenix or something like
Fennec,
that?
yeah,
something like that. I can't remember her name.
Fennec
yeah.
Shan?
Yes,
Fennec
I think
Shan.
so. Which
Final
is a
answer.
shame because her character was really good, and he killed her off.
I don't want to turn this into that episode, but I don't think she's
let's
dead.
not.
All right, I don't think she's gone. Nobody's ever really gone.
Well,
right?
that's true.
Right?
That's my that is true here at the Cantina Cast.
And well, that's very true also. But if people Boba Fett as well, so
that is true.
But anyway, so at the very end of that episode, we see a pair of boots walking up to her. We never get to see anything above the boots. We get the sound of spurs, and when that happened, again, it's that one moment in Empire Strikes Back for all of about 2 seconds that you hear the spurs as Boba Fett comes down those stairs right after the "We'd be honored if you join us" scene, right on Cloud City. And so for a lot of people, that was enough to kind of just draw a natural conclusion that, okay, we've heard spurs before. The more obvious one is probably somebody like Boba Fett, since we're talking about the Mandalorian as the show. He's on Tatooine. That's where Boba Fett was last seen, that kind of thing. So all that kind of draws some logical conclusions. But some of the other ones that we threw out there were kind of, besides Boba Fett, Cobb Vanth was somebody that came to mind for first and foremost for me. Cad Bane is another character that wore spurs. I mean, that's really a long shot considering he was animated. Yeah, at the time, I think my official answer, at least there, as much as I wanted it to be Cobb Vanth, my official answer was Moff Gideon, just because we didn't know anything about that character because we were still, 2 episodes
an episode
out.
away. Yeah.
So, but I guess overall, who were you thinking back in December that this was, and maybe has anything besides what we're going to talk about tonight changed your mind from that?
No, I mean, I just remember the debates in Discord, and I always said, I called it the MCU scene, and everyone gave me crap for saying that, and I agree, I shouldn't be calling it that, but that's the only thing that stuck in my mind at the time. But it was a special moment at the end of that episode. It was like an not an afterthought, but like end credits kind of thing. And we would only do that for a character that meant something, and it's Dave Filoni, and that's why I said it's got to be Fett. And the spurs were the hint, and a lot of people forgot about his spurs because he didn't have them in Return of the Jedi. We didn't hear him, I don't believe. So I'm still saying that's him, and I've come up with a theory. We discussed on the roundtable last week, me, you, and Joe, where with the whole merits of Boba Fett coming in and how that's going to play out. And I said no, it has to be Boba Fett because that's just why else would you do that scene? I mean, that's just the way it is. So that's how I'm leaning on it. Nothing's changed since December.
Okay.
Other than people telling me stop. I mean, I get where people are saying, but I don't want to turn it into that, is it good or bad if he comes in? But let's get back to
because that leads into is Mike crazy or not, and that's a whole nother conversation. Right? Another debate.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's do this. Let's so what I thought we'd do for the show is maybe talk about Cobb Vanth and then get into some maybe our own old school speculation, Cantina Cast speculation as to how he eventually got here and what would he even be doing here on the show. So let's again. So we mentioned Cobb Vanth as a character. For those of you that don't know, he is an outlaw. He is a person that showed up in the Aftermath trilogy, although they were very small snippets. I think these interludes in between the main chapters were all of about like 6 minutes or 5-6 pages tops. So very, very quick, short stories. And if you put all 3 of them, you get a little comprehensive kind of picture of who this character was. But it's interesting because it's never told from his perspective, right? So the very first one that comes out in Aftermath is told from the perspective of a character named Adwin Charu. I hope I'm saying that. Charu.
See, I don't even remember this part of it. I don't. I think I remember. Was it the last one? Because we get at his point in the last one, right? Or
no, that's actually told from
the Jawa.
No, this is the last one's being told from Adwin Charu's boss, right? And that guy's name is Lorgan Movellan or something like that, right?
Okay.
So in the first one, we're introduced to this character, and he's posing as this mining representative from the Red Key Company. And he's sitting there and he's talking to Jawas. He's getting frustrated because he knows the Jawas have something really important, really cool, but they're trying to sell him all this bunch of garbage, right? And so he gets frustrated. He's about to turn away and walk away from the Jawas on Tatooine when suddenly this, ominous character just suddenly appears and says, "Hey, buddy, if you need, I can help you. I can talk to the Jawas, kind of negotiate something better." And Adwin's like, so what is it that you want? Like, what are you looking for? What are you after here? And he's like, I don't want anything just but hospitality. So he ends up negotiating kind of on behalf of this Adwin character. And the Jawas, sure enough, they take him like to the back, right? The secret room in the Jawa sandcrawler. And it's there that they find this coffin. And in this coffin, there's a bunch of armor. And that armor looks like it's Mandalorian armor. And Chuck Wendig goes into description about how it looks like it's been, battle torn. There's like acidic markings on there, right? So he gives you all these little hints that you have no other choice but to think and to know that that is Boba Fett's armor, right? And so that immediately sends your mind guessing, like, oh, well, how did the Jawas even get a hold of this thing? What happened? Is he still alive? That kind of thing. And so right as, when Cobb Vanth sees the armor, instead of, saying, okay, thanks, and, all I asked for was hospitality, he's like, no, you know what? I'm now the sheriff of this new town called Freetown, and I actually need this armor in order to, provide justice and make sure that the, Tatooine is free of slave traders and bounty hunters and, the scum of the earth and that kind of thing. And so he actually tells this guy, I'm taking the armor from you. They kind of get into altercation. He kind of shows his blaster, and then Cobb fires a bolt right into his shoulder and takes the armor for himself. Doesn't kill him and says, I need you to. He sends him on his way, and that's how he gets possession of the armor. So that's the first story in Aftermath. In the second one, which is even more interesting, the second one is actually told from the perspective of, remember the Malakili, the Beastmaster from Return of the Jedi, the guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, now that, yes, because he finds him, and yes, because he's out of a job.
Right, so it starts...
And gives him a job, right? If I remember right, he says, hey, come work for me, if I recall. But
exactly. I mean, and it's a really sad story. I mean, again, this is not about Malakili, but it's a sad story about this guy was the Beastmaster for Jabba. He was, he raised... he's really known for, like, raising and taming these crazy beasts that kind of exist throughout the galaxy. And he is kind of just wandering around the desert, literally ready just to kill himself and end his life because he's meaningless, he's worthless, he has no purpose in life. And, he's about to get jumped by two more of these thugs from the same mining company, or the Raiders. And it's then that Cobb Vanth, and then we get introduced to this female character. She's a Twi'lek named Issa Orr, I think is what it is. So they actually save him, and they're like, hey, what do you do? And he's like, well, I'm worthless. I'm a Beastmaster. And they're like, oh, Beastmaster. Well, I'll tell you what, we got a job for you. We've got some, what do you call those? The monsters from episode 2 where they're in the pit.
Rontos. Oh, all right. Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
We'll go with the Rondos.
Yeah, they go with the Rondos. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rondos. All right, so I've got some Rondos that I need taming. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And he says we've got a baby hut. So he's got a child somewhere, and he's like, I need you to help tame this thing. And he's like, tame it? Don't you raise it? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Just come with us. And so they actually give him a position, and that's how the second story ends. And then finally, the last story picks up about a year later. So we're at I think we're at about 4 to 5 ABY at this point. So we're about 5 years prior to The Mandalorian, right? If my math is right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so in the last story picks up where the leader of this bandit, his name is Lorgan Movellin, right? He's now captured Cobb Vanth. He's got him in the middle of his city. He's trying to make like he's using him as an example. He's got him. He's about to kill him. You can tell all of his raiders have pretty much seized the entire city. And then he drags out, Malakili, and they drag out the baby hut, which is named. Well, it's not really important.
No, humble kidding. I'm kidding.
No, Zero. No.
Stinky, yeah.
Stinky, yeah. No, so they bring out this baby hut, and he's literally just about to go ahead and kill all of them to make, use them as an example. And that's when the baby hut screams, and this shriek is so loud that it signals the Tusken Raiders that are outside the city of Freetown, which used to be Mos Pelgo for anybody playing at home. And
nobody was, but that's all right.
Exactly, yeah. And the Tusken Raiders so they come crashing through the gate. They basically come in there and they wipe out all of these Raiders. And you come to find out that he actually made a pact with the Tusken Raiders. He actually had Malakili go out and get a pearl from a crate dragon, give that to them. So he bargained with them, made this deal with them as for protection. Plus, the Sand People knew that there was a baby hut in the town, and so they actually saw that as a I mean, they kind of saw that as a high level of respect because they had something like that. I mean, I guess they respect the Hutts because of Jabba or maybe some of the history and the lore there. It ends really with Cobb Vanth declaring himself the sheriff of the town, right? And he carves a message in this guy's head, in his forehead in some way. And that's pretty much how it ends. And we don't hear anything beyond that for about kind of the next 5 years. So that's kind of the story here.
Until we get to the Gunslinger episode where all the speculation comes and, and then, of course, the reports that came out with the guy that was just cast, Timothy he's
Olyphant.
He's going to wear the armor of Boba Fett, which is where everything, because it's funny because they say, Tamara Morrison's going to be playing Boba Fett, right? That's the big rumor, right? And then now they say this Timothy is going to be wearing the armor. So it's like, okay, this has got to be all signs pointing to Cobb Vanth at this point. I mean, that's why I think everyone's kind of jumping on that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say, so as part of doing the research here, it was really starting to dawn on me as I started kind of taking copious notes on the book and some of the backstory. But there are some very, very too familiar similarities between Cobb Vanth and the character we know as the Mandalorian. So let's start one. I mean, there's some of the obvious ones, right? They both wear Mandalorian armor.
Yeah.
They're both considered outlaws.
Yeah.
Cobb Vanth was a slave, so we know he's a slave on Tatooine. The Mando, not a slave, but it's probably worth noting that there's probably some similarities between that and Kuiil, right? Kuiil is a slave at some point.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian and Cobb Vanth both befriended Jawas. I mean, we saw that, well, to some extent, I would say, right? But they definitely both befriended Sand People. And that was one of the cool things when we saw that episode, and you made it look better than I.
Yeah, with the hand
signals and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, when I
sign
saw
language,
that, I saw that and I thought, wow, that's exactly like Cobb Vanth. Like, and it's so like, if you're somebody that grew up, with Star Wars all your life, and the Sand People, we saw them early on. We got a little bit of them later on in episode 1, but they were kind of elusive. We didn't really have a lot of, in Legends we did. In fact, we had a Jedi or a lightsaber wielding sand person. But at least from a canon perspective, they were kind of a mysterious character. We didn't really have a lot of information, and yet you think about somebody like Cobb Vanth, you think about somebody like, Din, and just possessing the ability to make peace with them and to understand them and use them as a resource, right? That's a really cool angle, I thought, on the Sand People. But both of them had that similarity. If you look at their immediate posses, right? Cobb Vanth has Issa Orr, who's that Twi'lek, and she's, they don't really go into a lot of detail with her, but that's very similar to Cara. And Cara and Din Djarin, right? He's paired himself up with his right-hand person and they're both female. I kind of saw Malakili as Kuiil to some extent because he was the Beastmaster.
That's true. And he reprogrammed the droid IG-11 there. So I kind of similar, not exactly, but he trained, if you want to say that, right? So with the Hutt and all that other stuff, but
And then the last one that was just kind of like, my gosh, this is a really big one. The Borgo the Hutt, the little baby Hutt. I mean, there's the child. I'm doing air quotes if you're not watching here. There's a child in this as well, and now it's not force sensitive and all of that. But if you just think about it, I mean, those things all kind of line up, right? Both of them from a personality perspective, they're both good people, but they're not great people, right? They're not that good natured. They're not above doing some really.
Well, they're a little disgruntled. They've had a tough life, so they have a grudge a bit. But they have a moral compass. They know there's a line that they'll go up to. For most part, I just want to get paid. But I think when it comes to like innocence, like a child or something like that, it's more like, well, I can't cross that line. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
but if you're a bandit or a bounty hunter that you've got a bounty out for, I mean, they'll toe that line. They'll walk it really close and do what they need to do to get the job done. So definitely similarities there. And then I guess the last thing that's kind of a no-brainer, but both of them are not true Mandalorians. But given where we are now in the way the story has been told, Mandalorian is more of a
creed.
It's
a creed,
right? It's more of a title, more of a creed. It's not that you're not necessarily you have to be born into it. You can be brought up into it and still be considered a Mandalorian. So from that perspective, and probably hence the name why we call the show Cobb Vanth the Mandalorian, That wasn't clickbait, I promise. But
yes, it was. Yes, and by the way, I had a different title, but I was overruled. I also got fired earlier for that lousy picture I put on Instagram of tonight's stream. And listen, it was a rush job. I'm sorry, Albert, but anyway, I don't blame you.
Can we just take a moment to apologize to everybody on Instagram and social media for the image that Mike Rondo posted? I think he used Microsoft Word for that.
No, but it was horrible. It was one of those things. Early in the morning, I just wanted to get the message out. I wasn't, listen, if there's a graphic artist out there that wants to, work with us, please let us know. But anyway, continue, sir. Sorry,
or a show host. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So beyond that, I mean, those are all of those are some kind of striking similarities. So I guess it may be just a quick question for you.
Okay.
Given all of that, do you think this story of Cobb Vanth had something to do with, Jon Favreau's idea of who the Mandalorian was and all of that?
Not John. But I would think Dave, knowing what he knows with Star Wars, I think he would say, you know what, we had this idea. Like, they're sharing and exchanging ideas. And I would imagine if John's coming up with this, he's penning this Mandalorian series, he's got to be referencing Dave for. He's going to be saying, hey, Dave, what do you think of this? And Dave kind of injecting something with like Cobb maybe or something like that and saying, hey, well, we kind of did this here and it was kind of interesting and we didn't get a payoff with it. But, hey, what if we brought it in for our main characters and kind of told that way? So, but Star Wars has a lot of similarities with a lot of characters and a lot of themes that repeat and everything else. So I'm not surprised that there's similarities here at all. But, yeah, I think Dave might have injected a little bit, so to speak.
Okay. So let's do this. Let's talk about Cobb Vanth and maybe get into some speculation here. So if the rumors are to be true, and again, this is all rumor, speculation. We don't have anything solid right now confirmed from anybody outside of, Reddit. But if Timothy Olyphant, if he is he listed in IMDb as the Mandalorian or Cobb Vanth?
No, he's got nothing listed, but it says one episode. Now it's not accurate because remember Cara Dune was listed as one and she was in a lot more. So you can't. I wanted to point this out right here. There's no name right here yet, but then we got this right here with episode 1. I mean, just one episode. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring it to the attention. So
So for anybody listening, Mike's pulled up IMDb, and I think by default, when somebody's named as being part of a television show or a movie, they get thrown in there, and then they have to put a value in there, I think. So they just put one episode, and they're done, right?
Yeah, they're not exactly accurate.
Yeah,
I mean, they kind of give you the general ballpark. It's been suggested. We'll leave it at that. But anyway, so I just wanted to point it out. Yeah.
So if we get to if we have a Cobb Vanth in season 2,
yes.
Let's do a quick timeline check first. So again, the Aftermath series, and for the story that we get for Cobb Vanth in the Aftermath series is about 4 to 5 ABY. The Mandalorian season 1 picks up in 9 ABY. So we've got about a 4-year span. So let's keep that in the back of our heads, kind of keep that with us on the table, at least as we continue to talk about this. But if we are to get a Cobb Vanth, and assuming he is at this point still the sheriff, still the mayor, still the lawbringer in this town of Freetown, we've got to go back to Tatooine in some way, right? I can't see I can't see a way Cobb Vanth has left. Maybe there is, but it doesn't feel like that would be the case, especially since we see him allegedly on Tatooine with the spurs and the boots and that sort of thing. But how do we get back to Tatooine? Like, what is the connecting tissue there that's going to take us back there? Is it somebody like Fennec Shand, or is it your buddy, Toro Calican, the guy that got the rookie bounty hunter?
But he's toast. And then again, nobody's really gone, right? I don't know. Obviously, we got to go back now. If you look at this, I'll just go back to this right here, because Boba Fett is listed as one episode as well, right? So you got to imagine maybe they're in the same episode. Just based off of this right now that we see here, this is not that accurate. It's about as accurate as my lovely Instagram post earlier in the day. It's awful. So if that's the case, obviously these two would be confronting each other. Is this like a special scene after You know what I mean? Like the Mandalorian left like Tatooine, and then we pan down and we get that thing. Are we getting something like this? The Mandalorian goes back to Tatooine, maybe because he's got to go to maybe the Lars homestead for some reason, because there was a Jedi that was rumored there, or maybe even Obi-Wan. Maybe he's got to go there to figure out where to bring the child. Right? He's in the whole tracking thing, right? That would be a reason to maybe go to Tatooine again. And maybe do we get like the Mandalorian leaves the cantina again, and then we see these two square off in the town square, and Boba Fett wins and gets his armor back, and the Mandalorian just misses all of this by chance. Because my theory is like Boba Fett is the bad guy that's in the background waiting for that big payoff several years down the line when the series finale or when the ratings dive or something, and they need him.
They're ready to jump the shark.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's where they're going with this. I don't know. I mean, Cobb Vanth, if he's around, okay, there's not much to govern, because if you looked at the Mos Eisley, right, there was nothing going on there. There was nobody was in the cantina, really. A couple of droids. The streets were like deserted. Everyone fled. So what is he the sheriff of, really?
See, I actually kind of took that a different way, because isn't it Tatooine that we had the pikes and the helmets on the pikes themselves, right? Those stakes that are kind of sitting up.
Yeah.
And so,
the other argument was like on the show. I remember on Mando Monday, I said maybe it was a Sunday afternoon and everyone was, doing something else, mowing the lawn or whatever, the sand. Yeah, exactly. Dusting the sand or something. I don't know. So it could have been, but it just seemed like, but it wasn't obviously as busy as it was. So did he clean up enough of it and also have enough people where if there's no jobs, like it was said in that particular episode when he was there, everybody's kind of gone, really. There's nothing left to really, there's no jobs because the crime syndicate's not there anymore, the Hutts. So what's going on? And then you have Cobb Vanth, going around being Wyatt Earp. So there's not much going on. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sure, you saw a lot of those helmets, but that was right when, I assume, when the Empire fell, and they've been up for the last 7, 8 years, 9 years. Those helmets have been there and nobody moved them because no one's around. I mean, I'm sure there's pockets where things seem pretty busy there, but for the most part, like the spaceport seemed like it I don't know, even that looked dead when he walked out, right? They walked out and
if you got a sheriff in town, then it isn't going to be the, scum and villainy that we are, we've known for so many years, right? So it could just be that, he's effective and all of the bad guys are out, the Empire's out. They've made it very clear they don't want the Empire in by making this mark of, hey, look what happens to the Empire should you come into this town. But here's my thing. Here's one of the hiccups I have, and it may be a minor hiccup. But you got the Mandalorian. He is very obviously a Mandalorian. He lands on Tatooine and he runs into people like Peli Motto or Motto. So she's the Afro girl, right? The Ripley of Tatooine Spaceport there.
The Ripley clone, yep.
You would think there would be a, wow, hey,
you
that's
look
crazy. You look exactly like our mayor. You look exactly like our sheriff. You probably should go talk to him. You guys probably have something in common.
Or you look like Boba Fett.
Or you look like this other character named Boba Fett who wanders around this area. But no, that never comes up. And then later on, he runs into Toro Calican. Yep. Toro Calican probably had an opportunity to say the same thing. Hey, look, you look like one of those two. Fennec Shand is another one. She probably could have said something, or you would think that maybe there would be a connection there. And again, maybe I'm nitpicking a little too much and trying to get away. But I do want to try to poke holes in this and try to understand how we could really have a Cobb Vanth be a presence on Tatooine, be a presence in something like Mos Eisley, or in the vicinity of Mos Eisley in his own. Maybe he's visited there. I'd imagine he would. I mean, at one point in the novel, he doesn't just say, "I'm here to protect, Freetown. I'm not just here to keep all of the scum and villainy out of Freetown." He says, "I'm here to Tatooine." He called it the planet, right? He's almost claiming at some point with no.
He wants to be the new Hutt, but
pretty much
justice, and I use that word loosely, because it's there is a power vacuum, right? The old Empire. I mean, someone's got to fill the vacuum, and he's just taking that opportunity to do so, and using the Mandalorian armor and Boba Fett's armor, if you will. So I don't know. I mean, again, your question is really, how do you get if we're going back to, if Cobb's involved, what is his reason for going back to Tatooine? Other than, you got two options where he's going back for whatever reason. Obviously, there's a MacGuffin, he's got to go find it or whatever. The other option is Cobb is leaving. He's going off-world after he comes across Fennec, right? Yeah. And she's lying there or whatever. And he goes and hunts down because he's like, well, I got to go hunt this guy down because he did this here in Law and Order or something like that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I had a few cockamamie theories myself, but what do you think?
Well, I would say that there are certain seeds, I think, right? I talked earlier about connective tissue. I think somebody like Peli Motto, obviously I forget the actress's name. She's established. She had a cameo role, but there's an opportunity there to kind of help expand that a little bit in some way. Now, what that looks like, I don't really know. Maybe there's some backstory with Toro Calican. It seemed like he was introduced as the young Han Solo that never made it. And maybe there's some story there that kind of they can pick up a thread that they didn't, a thread that was maybe not exposed, but now is surfaced again or has developed a little bit further now that he's out of the picture. Or somebody like Fennec Shand, right? If she does turn out to be alive and she does turn out to be existing on Tatooine, whether he's going after her for a bounty or, because I don't think the bounty was ever claimed on her, right?
No, I would say no.
And then was like, no, I'm going to go for the Mandalorian bounty because that's way more and give me a lot more notoriety.
Well, the person that walked up in the Spurs was claiming a bounty because he had the tracker. Yeah, I think he did. And who else would do that? Well, Boba Fett would do that, right? So would Cad Bane. To be honest, if you're going to name the two, Cobb Vanth, would he be doing that? I don't think he would necessarily be doing that, right? Because he's just the sheriff. He's not tracking you. Again, the whole tracking thing, we never got anything resolved with that, and that's been one of my gripes. Is I need something to tell me about the tracking thing, because otherwise, why didn't you track Luke Skywalker, back in Empire and all that other stuff? So please explain how this is all working, because I can't figure that out. But anyway. Carry on, sir.
Yeah, no, it's it's Star Wars magic, probably Star Wars science.
Yes, true.
So those are possibilities. We got this character of Issa Ora that was introduced in the novel. We don't know a lot about her, but there could be storylines that somehow tie her. Maybe she's in need, or she's trying to help, or the man, Cobb Vanth is in trouble and she needs help, and so she reaches out to the Mandalorian because she knows that he's one of them or something. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to kind of hook her back in. And then the crazy oddball theory here is this missing link of Malakili, because later on, and this is we're going to step into, and this is canon. This isn't Legends. Malakili actually leaves and he hooks up with drawing a blank on this guy's name, but he was I'm not making this up. He's like the head chef of Jabba, right?
I vaguely remember this now.
And Malakili hook up and they open up a restaurant on Tatooine called the Crystal Moon Restaurant, right? So maybe
gotta work on that name, man.
There's a scene. The Crystal Moon Restaurant doesn't do anything for you?
No.
So
no, it doesn't work for me.
Cockamania theory. What if they are in Tatooine for some reason and they happen to just go, you know what? I'm hungry. Are you hungry? Yeah, let's get a bite to eat. Oh, look at this restaurant here called the Crystal Moon Restaurant. They walk in there and then they run into Malakili, who says, whoa, you look exactly like Cobb Vanth, the Mandalorian. What? The Mandalorian? There's another Mandalorian. And maybe that's where our story goes. Huh?
No.
Right.
Let's just not go there. Let's just not go there.
I don't know. I don't really have a good theory. It is interesting.
No, but you got to find he's obviously got to. Well, I don't know. Boba Fett doesn't have to be locked onto that planet per se, right?
Well, we're talking about Cobb Vanth. You're jumping ahead. You want to talk about Boba Fett?
No. I know Joe's going to say something in the chat, but listen, no. I'm just saying, like, at the end of that chapter 5, right? It was chapter 5 where we saw the gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
And you see someone there, and one of the things he's like, all right, well, Boba Fett wouldn't be locked into the planet, but why would he be there? Why would he have been there for the last 9 years, just chilling out, not going on and become and like Joe said, maybe he was a moisture farmer. He said that in the chat. Maybe he became a moisture farmer and settling down or whatever. Or he's just collecting bounties on Tatooine. I don't know. So, but Cobb Vanth would be the one that's locked into the land or the planet because he wants to be the sheriff. Boba Fett gets to go off-world. So, how would you get Cobb, I guess, to go after, unless it's just for, like, I got to do justice, so I got to take off and I'll leave my lieutenant in charge of the planet or whatever. I don't know.
I agree 100%. Like Cobb Vanth, you get from that story, he is fully vested in staying on Tatooine. He's fully vested in ensuring that Tatooine never returns to the ways that they was, right? With all these bounty hunters and slave trading and all that stuff, all the bad stuff he wanted to rule out. And he's had 5 years to do this at this point. So, has he gotten there? I don't know. But you're right. I can't see a way or a reason why Cobb Vanth would leave the planet. Now, Boba Fett, if he is on Tatooine, and we're going to get into Boba Fett, don't worry, Mike, you'll get your wishes here. But with Boba Fett being, if he is on Tatooine, and this is a big question, is what is his motive, right? What is driving him? What has he been doing for 9 years now?
I mean, is he healing up and he's just finally catching up? And we see him in the end where he's kind of just starting to get back on the thing. I don't know. I mean, the reason this is what it goes back to Cobb Vanth. I know I'm bringing up Boba Fett, but my point being with Cobb Vanth, Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Where's Boba Fett?
There you go. That's for you, Joe.
Yeah. It's gonna be a sound clip now. Is if Cobb is now you made me lose my train of thought. But if Cobb, this is why I don't think it's Cobb, because he would have to. Why would he give, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense, because Boba Fett, but then again, where has he been for the last 9 years? I mean, there's that part of the story. You don't know. Yeah. I mean, granted, as you pointed out and last week on the roundtable is with Dave, you pointed out, because, and I agree with you, and even Joe, when we were on the show with the roundtable talking about this, with bringing Boba Fett into and I don't want to really hash this out here, but, you made a good point. We trust Dave. He did a good job with Darth Maul. And you were talking about how Darth Maul, the Phantom Menace is cool and everything, but his character was like, whatever. All right. He's not that deep of a character. He's like the new Boba Fett or whatever. He's cool, but he didn't really do much. Then they reintroduce him and you get over you jumped the shock here, George. You bring him in and then it evolves into something really, really good.
Right.
And Dave does very good with that. He did it with Ahsoka.
Yep.
He does that with Rex. He did it with all those characters. Now, my point being is with Boba Fett, is he could do that. He could finally make, for you people that don't like Boba Fett all that much, like Joe, who says he's useless and overrated and everything, he could become that, like we've all wanted to see.
Yeah.
But I don't want him to take away from the Mandalorian. I agree with you and Joe on that, and I think everybody agrees that, but we got to trust Dave on that. Now, my point being with Cobb, what would be the point of bringing Cobb Vanth into this, other than being a nice little Easter egg, and that's cool, and all that other stuff. Granted, it could be an interesting and compelling story, but I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, and that you're hitting on the motive part of it. So what is the motive of a Cobb Vanth at this point? What is the motive of a Boba Fett at this point? What is it they want? What are they trying to accomplish, right? And how does that fit into the Mandalorian? We know somebody was tracking that same Fennec Shand, right? And so they were definitely going after that same person. So maybe there's a rivalry there. Maybe he's trying to one up. I mean, there's an argument to be made that says, okay, if Boba Fett's in this and he comes to find out, maybe he hasn't been to Tatooine, right? Maybe he's not been on Tatooine for the last 9 years, but he picks up a bounty for this character named Fennec Shand. He ends up going to Tatooine, sees somebody kills her, goes and starts asking questions, and they say, oh, he was dressed like a Mandalorian. Mandalorian? Yeah, he's wearing Mandalorian armor kind of thing, right? Well, we also know of a character named Cobb Vanth, the sheriff of this town, Freetown, who wears Mandalorian armor, and that leads Boba Fett to Freetown for a confrontation, because he does want something, right? His motivation at this point may be, and not to quote, "That's mine," but you got my armor, right? That's mine. That belongs to me. My father gave me that. Whatever the history is there from a canon perspective, he's got a reason to go after this guy and take him down. Maybe the Mandalorian comes in to save Cobb Vanth. Maybe he, it sees him. Maybe there's a moment in there where those two characters, Cobb Vanth and the Mandalorian, realize that, hey, neither one of us are truly Mandalorians, but we both claim this title of Mandalorian. And you've got this other person saying, neither one of you is a true Mandalorian. That guy's got my armor. You're a phony. And that creates the bizarre, I'm not going to say bizarre love triangle, but it creates the conflict,
whoa.
right? Yeah.
That's a whole different show. That's going to go on Hulu, sir, not Disney Plus.
But maybe that's the conflict there, right? Maybe that's the conflict where you've got him. And what it comes to mind, and I thought about going into this, but the show notes were getting too long, and I was like, we're probably not going to have time for it. But have you ever seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Yeah.
The old Western that's like 4 hours long, spaghetti Western?
Yeah. Well, you might be heading that way.
And that's where, honestly, at some point, Mike, table this, because we got to come back to this. But that's one of my favorite movies. It's a really terrible and amazing spaghetti western. If you look at it, it's got 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's always highly rated, but when you watch it, it's kind of off-putting because the voices are dubbed and people are not speaking English and all kinds of weird stuff. But anyways, that's not the point of this. The point is that
that's called charm. That's called charm, Albert. That's what that is.
You could have the good, the bad, and the ugly storyline in a small compressed.
Well, maybe this is what you get. Like for 3 episodes, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly with these 3, and one comes out, which would be the Mandalorian, I would think. And Boba Fett actually dies. No, I don't think he would. I don't think they would do that, right?
Yeah.
But I agree with Joe. I would like to see like Boba Fett get his own thing. If we're gonna do this, like, and they've even mentioned it with Ahsoka and Rex and Sabine and everybody else that's been. I think just about everybody that's ever been in the Clone Wars has been mentioned in Rebels, has been mentioned to be in this season 2, right? In the last 2 weeks. So
yeah,
if they're gonna do this with like Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, and all that, and even Cobb Vanth, like, put them off to somewhere else. Keep this as the Mandalorian story. I agree. But the other thing with like the Mandalorian, okay, we got the child, and this is going to only bring us so far. At some point, we have to drop the child off somewhere, right?
No.
This has been my content. I know you disagree, Joe. Everybody disagree. I think we've gone to the well a little too much.
That's called child abandonment. That's not a good parenting.
No, well, the mission is to find his place, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would assume this season's going to be, right? And that's why Ahsoka's involved. Maybe, who knows, Ezra. And maybe this is why, like I said, we go back to Tatooine because Obi-Wan was there. He finds out, well, Obi-Wan had a hut there and Luke Skywalker was there. And, that's what leads him there. And this is why we get into this whole the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of story plot that happens for a few episodes, which would be interesting. I don't know if that'll happen, but you got to think that Dave and John, they've mentioned it before, the good, the bad, and the ugly was part of the inspiration of this,
right?
That would kind of happen, like that would literally play out in this this show. I don't know. It's an interesting point. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So I don't want to put a nail in the coffin on Boba Fett, but
you do.
Yeah,
you do. Well, listen, he casts a big shadow when it comes to.
He does, and that's my problem. And you open the Pandora's box, and so I'm going to go real quickly.
I know.
My problem with Boba Fett is, first off, no disrespect to Boba Fett fans anywhere. If you are a Legends Boba Fett fan, there's a lot of content that makes him look really cool. He's amazing. I get it. My grief has always been, from a canon perspective, they just never really did a whole lot with him. And I felt like he didn't get his fair due when he went out in the Return of the Jedi. And they certainly didn't play to his strengths in the Clone Wars, and certainly not even, or not Clone Wars.
Well, he was
Rebels.
young. Yeah, he was young.
He was young and naive, right? And he made a lot of stupid mistakes, and that's just kind of being a kid and everything. But he was not the legendary character from a canon perspective, the legendary character that everybody wants to believe he is. And I say that with all due respect.
I agree with you. I agree. And I'm a big
cool-looking character. And he's got one of the coolest-looking ships and one of the coolest
that's my favorite ship, by the way.
And the coolest rifle. And he can disintegrate people, right? I mean, there's all these things about him that made him really cool that we didn't get to see a whole lot of. And but he didn't really do a whole lot, right? He didn't impact as the Star Wars universe and I'm not going to get into the meta of, well, he was the one that, took Han and froze him. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying overall, he's not a character that made some really big strides in the canon universe.
Well, we never get to see it. And it's just like Maul. Like Maul, this is a parallel, really, the two of them, when you think about it. And now Dave has maybe the opportunity to tell that story that we've always wanted. So that's where I'm going with that. But, like, would Cobb Vanth be as interesting? Not to the general audience, right? Most of them don't even know who the hell he is.
But that's okay. See, here's my thing. I think it's okay. Most people don't know.
Well, I agree.
Who Kara was. Most people didn't know who Will was, right? They do have a lot of runway here to build up some of these characters and introduce them, even if they're Easter eggs for us that knew them from 3 chapters, a total of 15 pages out of 3 novels. I think that's a great way to do it and still have an Easter egg in there that's not a really kind of a big one. I think there's an opportunity there. My problem with Boba Fett is the minute you introduce him, you've got to figure out, there are people that are going to ask questions, and you could skip over it and not have to really get into it and pull I'm not going to say the Rise of Skywalker, but some elements of the Rise of Skywalker where you just have to accept what's happened, right? There's a suspension of disbelief that comes with it. The minute you introduce Boba Fett, you've got to be able to move that story along, but not upstage the Mandalorian. You don't want to upstage his character and growth. And how do you do that with a character as iconic as Boba Fett, as someone who's so well liked in the eyes of many, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. I think that's really hard. And so if maybe what they're going for is the long game and the Boba Fett story is bits and pieces over the course of the next 2 to 3 seasons, I can see that. But I think it's going to be a sparingly kind of usage of Boba Fett. I don't think you can bring him in here and say he's going to be in there for the next 3 episodes or anything like that. He's got to have very small roles, maybe it progressively builds. And so by the time we get to season 4, he's a primary character or a main character, much like they did with Maul, right? Maul wasn't every single episode of every single season of the Clone Wars. They gave you little bits and pieces and kind of towed you along. And eventually you get to the point where he's like one of the main characters come season 7 and completely grew in ways that we couldn't have imagined. I think that's okay. I still worry that this show may not be the right forum for that. I'd like to see them introduce Boba Fett here, maybe give us a hint
move
that
on.
Give us a hint that he's alive, move on past him. And if Dave or somebody feels like, hey, we really want to tell this story because there's a great story here, like Darth Maul, great. Do it in a novel. Do it in his own spin-off series that was rumored for so long. Do it in a movie. I don't know what it is, but
I can
certainly opportunity to do all that.
I can throw some speculation and nonsense out there just for the giggles of it all.
You're good at nonsense. What are you saying?
That is true. Well, Dave is only doing one episode, right? Because he's probably busy doing a lot of other things, right?
Yeah, we said he's doing the Rex episode, an Ahsoka episode.
Yeah. Well, what if he's actually working on, or he's going to do that because it's Ahsoka, it's his character. He's got full control, I imagine, over her and even Rex, and wants it done right. And I don't blame him at all, and that's how it should be. But what if he's working on a Boba Fett thing? A side project, like another series or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, there's rumors that there's going to be no animation series for a while, which I don't buy, but because I think Disney Plus is perfect for it. So you might as well do it. Like, I mean, look at the Clone Wars. It was the #1 streamed thing in this year so far, even though, this hasn't really been quite the year, but
right.
That's what I mean. So maybe because I would have thought he would have gotten more. You would have thought he'd been directing more, but I think he's focusing on other things, and maybe Boba Fett will get a spinoff or something where he's interesting, and this is just the introduction of it. Yeah, and the same thing with Ahsoka, Rex, and Bo, and all that stuff. So, I just don't see how Cobb. I mean, he's an interesting character, and you're right. You don't need everybody to know about him, right? It's not that big a deal if you don't know about him. You get that's the point of watching the show, is you get to like the character and get involved with the character. Just make him. But if he shows up with Boba Fett's armor and so he says, "Well, I'm Cobb Vanth," and everyone's gonna be like, "Well, what? Huh?" That's my problem. Although it looked like when you look at that scene in the Gunslinger, you don't see anything other that indicates Boba Fett.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's like a cape that you could say, and the spur sound, but even the boots look different and everything else. So, maybe Cobb has the armor and Boba Fett doesn't.
I mean, and so just maybe the final point on Boba Fett before we kind of wrap up here. I guess from your perspective right now, if you had to place a bet, are you going in and saying that Boba Fett is alive at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean he is alive. They've said it before in their canon. You know what I mean? Like they've said he survived, and because they were going to do the movie about it. So yeah, he survived.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same.
Yeah.
I know. And make sure we're on the same page here. There in the novel, in those 3 stories, there are other little. And again, it's only 15 pages, but there are literally 1 or 2 sentences that allude to the fact that something cut their way out of the Sarlacc pit. So there's been a lot of speculation. It's like, okay, well, how did he survive? And maybe he knifed his way out of there. They mentioned at one point when Malakili is kind of wandering around the desert, he actually goes out to the Sarlacc pit and wants to see what happened and see the damage, and because he's got this natural tendency to want to raise beasts or tame beasts in some way. And when he gets out there, he realizes that when the explosion of Jabba's skiff, right, his floating palace thing or whatever, when that blew up, it
blew a hole, right?
It blew a hole in the Sarlacc pit, and it did a lot of damage to it, to the point where it just sat there and was slowly dying. And the Jawas came in and raided a lot of stuff. They were digging through it, hacking away at it, and it was just sitting there suffering, wanting somebody to put out of its misery. And so, you see stuff like that. You see that there's hints about, this whoever was wearing this armor, it looks like they got away in some way. So there's a lot of hints that were at least laid down in the Aftermath books that Boba Fett did survive. We have, like, to your point, we have the storyline of the rumors about the TV show and that sort of thing. But I guess with Boba Fett, I mean, I don't know. What is this? If he does come back, is he an antagonist? Is he going to be a protagonist? Do you think he's going to be working with somebody like the Mandalorian or Cobb Vanth? Or do you think he's going to be the opposing character in some way?
I think he would be like Maul, like opposing. Like that interesting, like his character grows more than what you, like Maul was just a one-dimensional character in the Phantom Menace. And even when he came back, he was obviously a broken Sith Lord, if you want, but with his brother and all that stuff, things evolved with him, right? And he's always had his moments where he's going deranged, but the last season 7, he had matured so much as a character in a mental capacity, in the sense that he's seeing and hearing things and putting things together that our main characters have no clue about. So they could do something like that with Boba Fett. Now, should it be on this show? I don't think so, but if they do it like they did with Maul, where, like you said, he's not on every episode. He's in the background. Slowly, we're inching our way to that big payoff where it means something, like Ahsoka and Maul going head-to-head kind of type of thing. Or it's on another show, which I'm fine with. I mean, Cobb, I just don't see a lot of value with him. I mean, do you want to waste time on telling Cobb Vanth's story than maybe taking Boba Fett's story and evolving it to like a Darth Maul kind of arc where he's cooler, you get more depth with the character now, and fans can finally say, oh, well, finally, he lives up to the name that we all wanted him to be since I had the action figure when I was a kid. You know what I mean? With Cobb, it's kind of like, we kind of know his story. Larry, he's just a sheriff, and that's what he's going to do, and he's on Tatooine, and are we going to go any further than that? Is it worth it? I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, I would think we'd be getting more material in like a comic or something like that. And maybe more hints, but we haven't really got that. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I mean, you bring him in to play Cobb Vanth. Obviously, he's going to wear the armor, so that's pretty interesting. Although the lady that played Fennec, right, she was a pretty decent actress, and all of a sudden she's dead in one episode. So
maybe
this could be this.
Whoa!
What? Well,
throwing around the D
dead.
word. She's not dead. I don't.
No, she's dead. She's dead. No, she's dead. I'm pretty sure of that. Unless whoever it is saves her. There's always that. I mean,
maybe he did. Maybe it's Boba Fett. So the only other thing that I would say about Boba Fett, and again, thank you for joining the Cobb Vanth show where we talk about Boba Fett for 2 minutes.
It's all Mike's fault. Yep, blame me.
But no, we had it in the show notes, to be fair. With Boba Fett, the other angle here is we got to remember what is one of the he's got two primary things that really kind of drive him, have always driven him to be the character that he is. Right? We know from later on in his life he had some kind of rivalry with Han Solo. That's why he was that important. There was a huge bounty there. In canon, they certainly crossed paths a number of times, and Han always had the upper hand, and that just kind of drove this guy character crazy. On top of that, though, you got to remember from the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, he has a bone to pick with the Jedi in general. Yeah. Right? And if we get a character like Ahsoka, which would be a kind of heavy-handed reference, but if Ahsoka is a primary character in season 2, or becomes a primary character in season 2, and somehow she meets up with the Mandalorian, or maybe she and Rex have been living in Freetown. I don't know. I'm kind of speculating here, wild speculation.
You're going off the deep end.
I am. Here we go, buddy. I'm jumping the shark. Get your tinfoil hats on. But if they're living somewhere in like Freetown, and his whole goal in life is to cash in on bounties, and oh, by the way, I know that there are still Jedi that seem to be roaming around here, even though the Empire did a pretty good job of wiping them out, and he's got a bone to pick with these Jedi. Somebody like Ahsoka, who was around during the time when his father died, I don't know. Maybe there's something there where he's going after Ahsoka and wants revenge and something, right? I mean, it's kind of very similar to the Darth Maul arc, and unfortunately, where he's honestly going out there and all he's thinking about is Kenobi and wants revenge and that kind of thing. But that would be another way to kind of tie all of these characters together. And, I don't know, maybe it's a little too messy, but maybe it's a little too convenient. I don't know. But that could be another way that
that's a little bit of that's tradition with Star Wars anyway. That's kind of sometimes that's how it works. But anyway,
but I do to your kind of what you said. I like the idea that Boba Fett is not the good guy here. I do want him to be the really bad guy, and I want him to shine. I really want him to have an opportunity to be the character that we know he's capable of doing, and we've never just had a chance to see. And if they can't do it all in this series, give him another series, give him something else where we can get that character. For Cobb Vanth, I would love for him to be in this because I thought he was a great character, a short-lived character in the novels. How we get there, I don't know. But the idea that with the fact that Timothy Olyphant has been cast, and when you read I went back and watched some of the episodes of some of the shows he was in. When you go back and read those chapters and the way he talks, I visually can see this character. He seems like he would be a perfect Cobb Vanth, especially even how they describe him.
Well, when you see him in Justified, it's a perfect match. When you see him in Justified, and then you're like, that's perfect. That makes sense to go that route. And then hopefully he doesn't die like, the other ones that were in one episode and they're dead. I don't want that because it would be a shame to have a cool character that could have a lot of development going forward. I'd hate to see him taken out really quick. I hope they don't do that, but you never know. We'll see. I mean, if he's playing Cobb and if he's anything like he wasn't Justified, it would be like he'd be like, all right, I'm glad we went this route, and not like. And Boba Fett was just this one episode we saw him, and he, I think maybe if Fett's gonna show up, maybe it's more of a, and like they kind of did. Well, maybe they won't do it this way. Like that's their moment of saying, hey, he survived. There you go. And that's the end of that. And then we see him in the background getting off planet to go do something else or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe even helps the Mandalorian. Who the hell knows? I want him to be the gray character where he just wants to get paid. Like the opposite of Mando. Like Mando goes up to a fine line and then stops. I want Boba Fett to just cross it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just be and that's where it could work out with their dynamic of being like, I'm going this far, but you're going to go completely, almost like IG-11. Like just, I'm going to kill the child. That's what they wanted me to do.
Right.
That's what I'm going to do.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's you're not a true Mandalorian because look how much I'm willing to go further than you.
Yeah,
you have a stopping point. I'm the true Mandalorian.
But you even get the point with, like you said, with the Jedi, right? Like the Mandalorians traditionally do not like the Jedi.
Right.
Or any Force user for that matter, if you want to throw that in there with, even Maul, with that device that they had, which I have a feeling is going to show up again some point in like the Mandalorian. Device? The thing that they had Maul in, that like carbon freezing thing, but it wasn't. Yeah, I think that's going to show up again in the awesome. Mandalorian.
Yeah.
You would think like, all right, he sees the Mandalorian working with Ahsoka, who's a Jedi. Like, well, you're not a true man. Maybe Boba wants to become the Mandalorian. And maybe that's the end of the thing. Maybe this is where the end road is. I don't know. We'll see. And Din Djarin says, I'm not a Mandalorian. I'm going to go with the Kara and the village lady and settle down. Hey, take my armor. I don't really care.
What about Baby Yoda? See, your theory's flawed because you're completely skipping over the child. You're already
the child gets dropped off.
You're abandoning the child. That's not
the child. Well, again, the child is a heavy price tag too. So I don't know. It's very interesting. Who the hell knows? I think either way, like if you bring Cobb in and you got Timothy playing him, I think it's a good thing and it'll be interesting. I mean, they haven't done anything too bad other than go to the well too much with the Baby Yoda, but that's just my gripe. And the tracking thing. Those are the only two things that kind of gnaw at me a little bit. But other than that, and Boba Fett, like I agree with, and Joe busts my chops about it, but I don't want Boba Fett taken away from Din either, because Din is a good character. I like him. He's flawed. He's got emotions and he's evolving and everything else. But Boba Fett's casts a big shadow, and we got to deal with it. When you're talking about the Mandalorian, you can't help but think of Boba Fett. I mean, he looks just like him, so we got to resolve that issue. Maybe that's what they're doing this season. But anyway,
well.
Yep, the Boba Fett show.
The Boba Fett show. Welcome. If you're just joining us, tonight's topic is Boba Fett. No.
Well, to be honest, we've never really dived into Boba Fett.
I know.
The show.
I think we're going to have to at some point here.
Well, yeah, I think as we go into season 2, things will change, and we'll have to read, or even get closer. We'll get more information and figure things out, especially when a trailer drops. I mean, if Boba Fett's like, I'm curious what he looks like, considering I don't think he has the armor. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean to go over on the show here, but he takes the armor off because of the acids or whatever, and he just takes it off because it's burning at him, right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't. In Legends, I think that's certainly the case.
Yeah.
And there's the argument is that if it takes 1,000 years for this thing to digest you, then it's a very slow, painful death, but you don't really die for, the first 50 years, right? So he may not be that scarred. He may have I would imagine he's got acid burns on him, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, the story is that the armor came off, and either this thing finally digested it, and the sand or the Jawas collected it all and put it into that little coffin thing, or they cut it open and pulled it out themselves. I don't know. It's kind of left up for you to kind of determine.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
So, anyways,
yes,
that is. Let's just end this discussion here. We'll obviously pick this up a little bit later. Hopefully, we gave you guys some things to think about. Hopefully, you have your own speculation now, some ammunition for you to argue with your friends about whether argue with Mike or your other friends or non-friends about whether Boba Fett's alive. Could Cobb Vanth be in season 2? We've kind of I think we made the case for him to be in it. I think we've made a couple of cases for him not to be in it. Who knows? We'll find out very soon here come October when season 2 of The Mandalorian comes out. So before we go, we do have a little bit of feedback. Now this is okay.
Oh yeah.
So the first, and you can turn the show off now if you don't want to listen to this, but
I don't.
You do. Listen to this.
No, I
Mike
don't.
Rondo. Somebody wrote in on a iTunes review. It says, great info, great podcast, 5-star review. I came for the Star Wars news. I stayed for Mike Rondo. Keep it up. Okay. How much did this cost you to your mom to write this review in?
$200.
Wow.
That's $200 I ever spent.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you. That's from Archium, I think is his name. He or she, Archium. Thank you for the 5-star review.
Thank you. I don't know why you'd want to stick around for me, but, hey, so be it.
So be it. So thank you very much. No, in all sincerity, thank you for the feedback, and thank you for the kind words to the show and to Mike, and especially for the 5 stars. We do appreciate that. And then we also got one in from Mr. and really original here, Mr. 123457. I don't know what happened to 6, but this says, I've been listening to the Cantina cast for a long time. I enjoy the insightful breakdown of storylines and updates regarding the latest news involving the Star Wars universe. The show has evolved over the years as new hosts have stepped in. I am thankful for that the show has continued to exist throughout these transitions. Here's hoping the Dark Lord of Podcasting, Albert and Jonesy, are able to return as a trio. Thanks for all you do, and may the Force be with you. So, may the Force be with you. Thank you, Mr. 123457.
Well, it's always fun when the three of us are together talking Star Wars. I do like doing that. Jonesy, when he comes back, I'm sure we'll kind of all three of us be together palling around. Because see, here's the thing: I like doing like these live shows and the streams, and I like doing the episodes like this. We record it live and we do the audio thing. We used to do this a few years ago where we'd record the show, and I love doing that because I like showing that we could do it all in one take. Now, granted, I flubbed at the beginning of this show, but it was for comedy. That's why I did it. But for the most part, it's usually flawless, and I like doing that. It's a good challenge, and I love doing that. So, in any case, that's all.
It's funny. We get people that ask me, "Do you guys break?" And like, no, this is we just go. We ain't got time to mess around. We gotta
no, and that's mostly because of my editing, and I didn't want to take 5 different breaks and try to mess it together. I was like doing it in one take, and that's it. And
doing it live.
Yeah, I was just gonna say if I had that clip, we'll do it live. But anyway, all right. Anything else, sir?
No, that's all I got. Do you got anything else? Any final parting words of wisdom before we go?
I hope I hit the right button.
Yeah, can you play the right outro? All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week on episode 326.
Awesome.
Still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.